But I thought, you know, when I was coming up today, I was like, very rare to get you two together. A couple of sort of averagely talented former England midfielders. I know how much you hate talking about yourself, which is fine, so we can talk about Glenn.
Yeah, cool.
And you can do all the talking about Paul. I just thought it'd be nice to have a chat about the period that you spent together, really, as manager and player and things. When I talk to you about Paul Scholes, what's the first sort of memory that comes into your mind as when you kind of first had him on your radar?
As soon as I became England manager, it hadn't been in the squad, but I earmarked him and Bex, actually, straight away to be brought in. Straight away, because what I'd seen of him, he was just top quality. And he then continued that for the next 15 years after whatever it was. I think you were about 21, but he had everything. Paul, you know, I've gone on record of saying this guy sitting next to me is everyone says to me, who's the best player you've coached? Blah blah blah. It's Paul. I say Paul. He had one thing that I think that he had to improve on. And it wasn't much, really. I forever was trying to get him to stand on his feet, not see the red mist, because you could see he wanted to win the ball, and he went in sometimes. I'm thinking he's going to get sent off a few times. That was the only problem he had as a player. If that's your only weakness, then you got a chance. So he was excellent. His technique was second to none.
So you obviously weren't involved with England. Do you remember like the phone call or the message from Glenn, or how did it work in those days? Did you get a letter from the FA or something?
Pigeon.
God, I can't remember. So I think I probably just read it on Sky Sports. What?
Whoa.
I just read it on...
Can I just point out, that's only because at that time BT Sport didn't exist.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say that. Yeah, I just think I picked it up as normal and was surprised. I was quite...
You were surprised?
Oh yeah, of course I was. I hadn't played that many games. I was a late developer. I would have been possibly 21. And,
you were 21?
Yeah, and I think the other lads were like 18, 19. You're thinking Nicky and Gary and Phil and Bex were in before me as well. And it was a chance to look, a chance you've got to try and take. And once you get it, you've got to be good at it. I think the first game was here actually against South Africa. Came on with 10, 15 minutes to go with Ian Wright, Paul Gascoigne, playing with all these unbelievable players and.
But as a manager, I'd done it as a player, so as a young player coming in, you have to, it's a nervous thing, you're in the training ground with all these players, you know, going through that. I looked at that, you know, as a manager now, I'm thinking, well, how are you going to cope in your first training sessions? And he just walked in and straight away, Johnny Gorman, my assistant at the time, we just went, look at him, looks like he's been here forever. You know, he's a young kid, 21, he wasn't a young kid, but compared to the experience that was around him, and it was a very, very experienced squad, actually. The likes of Shearer, Sheringham, you know, Ince, Tony Adams. Yeah, it was a really, really experienced squad. And he just stepped out on that training pitch, as did David Beckham, as did this crop of youngsters that we had from Manchester United at that time. Very exciting time. And he just looked at home, and I went, yeah, he'll do for me.
Did that confidence belie any nerves that were under the surface?
Yeah, obviously it helps when you've got a coach who believes in you and you know, wants to bring you into the squad and thinks you're going to improve it. I think the big help coming into the squad nerves-wise was I had 4 or 5 mates with me. Do you know what I mean? Who'd already been around and stuff, and I was always asking, what's it like? What's he like? Because I'm playing with players that I've grown up watching. You know, you think the likes of Tony Adams, you mentioned Paul Ince, who had watched there in the first team and played a little bit with. So I think that transition into it was a lot smoother than it normally would be.
Were you the sort of player to be asking them what to expect, what it's going to be like, or was your approach just turn up and let your football do the work?
Yeah, I think my approach was because I was watching all these experienced players that I'd seen, I wanted to impress them. I wanted to show that I was worthy of being in the squad, whether it's in training, doing a little 5-a-side possession, whether it's shooting at the end of it. My job was to make sure I felt like I was in the right place with these players, that I could compete with these players, I could play with these players, and trying to earn the respect of the course of the manager first, of the coaches, and then the most senior players.
That's what you want to do. I remember going back now. There was Kevin Keegan, all these players, Trevor Brooking, and I'm a youngster. That's what you want to do. You're not quite sure yourself. You're still. There's a slight little doubt. You believe in yourself and you believe in your abilities, but there's always that doubt until you get there, and then you start to compare, and you think, hang on a minute, they're great, they're brilliant, but actually, I'm holding my own here, or I'm doing even better than that. So that's how you actually, as a youngster, you sort of push yourself. There's little doubts in there that later on in life, you haven't got any of them doubts. They're gone. But that's the part of the growing up as a player.